Welcome to Patanjali meditation. Last week we have discussed the certain aspects of Patanjali meditation, and in particular what benefits one beginner will notice in early phases of practice. Today we want to discuss something very important that pertains to nomenclature and the terminology that we are using here. And you might have noticed right from the beginning we are saying that we are relying on a book called Yoga, either Yoga Darshan or Yoga Sutra, authored by Patanjali. And whenever we use this term nowadays, there is likely to be misunderstanding in somebody's mind, because today yoga is known more as a physical posture, some exercises, etc. So let's be clear on what this particular course is very much based on, that I call as very authentic and very comprehensive and easy and efficient. On what grounds we are using such adjectives, that will become slightly more clear when we go through this nomenclature and terminology related to Patanjali Yoga meditation. So one, right at the outset, borrowing a statement from the greatest Vedic scholar India produced in last few millennia, Maharshi Dayananda. His time frame is 1824, or sometimes said 1825, but he lived until 1883. He made a remark that Indian civilization went into decline about 6,000 years ago. So that was his way of looking at ancient Indian history and how it went into decline. And that decline, which began about 6,000 years ago, led to an event which is a very dominating event in Indian history called MahāBhārata War, about 5,100 years ago. It's this sort of world war, you can think of it. So this has become a dividing line for those who are interested in ancient Indian philosophy, literature, etc. It divides into Pre-MahāBhārata period and Post-MahāBhārata period. So Pre-MahāBhārata period, as far as our understanding of meditation and allied faculty is concerned, the literature is basically has three sections or three divisions. One is Vedic, the four Vedas, then it is Upanishadic age, and then we have age of 6 books of Vedic philosophy, what is called Shad-darshan age. So within that third age, we have Patanjali's treatise on yoga, and that is what is written on the right side in this box. This is the original Patanjali's book on Yoga Sutra. It is they are called as Sutra or aphorism. Sutra literally means a thread which can take you to some destination, probably, if you follow it properly. So it is divided into 4 chapters, and the very first statement is here, Hatha-Yoga Anushāsanam. So I have just put in the first 3 statements here, Yogaschitta-vritti nirodha, tada drashtu swarupe avasthan. Actually, this is a kind of a closer. So one who is at a very high ladder in human development For him, this message is enough. Otherwise, then he elaborates those who need more guidance. So there are total 195 statements clubbed into 4 chapters, and each about say 50 statements. So they are sutta in the sense they don't quite make a sentence. There is no verb here. So you have to be very much trained here. So to make sense out of them. It's not that you know a part of this language, Sanskrit, and you can say, I am knowledgeable in this because I can decipher what it means. No, it's not that simple. So it requires a lot of training and a lot of hard work and practice, etc. So let me say, he has that you will see when you pick up any book on modern commentary on this philosophy of yoga by Patanjali, they miss out this very important part. That's why most of the books are faulty, because they don't realize that Patanjali, the original author, has given prescriptions for 3 different categories of people. So his first chapter is yoga. Then second chapter begins with Kriya-Yoga, some appendix kind of a thing, some additional teaching, so that the average people can become qualified for message of yoga. And then those who are below average, for them he prescribes in the second section of the second chapter, that goes on to the third chapter also, what is called Ashtanga Yoga. So we are more or less following this with some input from Maharshi Dayananda, so that we have a glimpse of this, as well as most of the prescription is from Ashtanga Yoga. So that ensures that anybody who follows this course in earnest and does the practice will definitely benefit from Patanjali's teaching. Now, what are we trying to say is, in post-Mahabharata period, when the decline went on, so you will see Indian history and probably the world history is more of what we say devolution. So this has to be appreciated, otherwise you cannot do justice to Indian literature. Otherwise the mainstream is very much obsessed with evolution. Yes, there is evolution of material science, so to say, but when it comes to such knowledge that Patanjali meditation is talking about, that we will say is kind of science of mind and consciousness, then we will see that mostly it is history is that of devolution. Things are going through a massive decline, and that's what this particular course attempts to do. That in the mess that has been created about Patanjali's yoga, as well as his predecessor is Kapil, who authored a book on Sankhya. So we have benefited from both Kapil's Sankhya and Patanjali's yoga treatises, and combined together the science of mind and science of consciousness. So this is the nature of devolution in post-Mahabharata period, that people begin to slightly devalue, even undermine, or even sideline Patanjali's teachings. And then they cooked up certain terms like Karma Yoga, Jnyāna-Yoga, Bhakti-Yoga, and many more terms. But they treated Patanjali Yoga as sometimes calling it as Dhyāna-Yoga or even Rāja-Yoga. So this was a bad time where people began to give an idea as if there are alternatives to Patanjali's teachings, which actually there is none. So why is this problem occurred and how to look at it? We will say These are the segments of Patanjali's prescription, Patanjali's teaching, namely action, knowledge, and devotion, etc. And they are integrated within Patanjali Yoga. So, Patanjali Yoga, for example, if I went further detail into it, then we will see there is Abhyas and Vairagya. Abhyas is practice based, that takes care of action, and Vairagya is some kind of a detachment from worldly experiences that comes from knowledge. And he also has an element in Niyam that is called Ishwar Pranidhan, and that takes care of devotion. So all these segments are very much integrated into Patanjali Yoga, but this was a bad time where some people thought indeed there can be alternatives to Patanjali Yoga, which is not true. Patanjali Yoga include all these segments. And then in the recent past, by Indian standard, say last 2000 years, we look at it as a recent history, another faculty took birth that is called as Hatha-Yoga. Now, Hatha-Yoga is more of physical domain related to our physical domain of body. And it's not that it is not relevant, that is very important for us. We have to have a good physical health. So this is a kind of therapeutic yoga, if you can, but there is no, I don't get the point, why did they borrow the term yoga here? But anyway, that was considered as Hatha Yoga. Now, this is the problem in the present times, all those who are talking about in the name of yoga are actually talking about Hatha Yoga, you know. So this has become today de facto that if this is the yoga. So I want those attending this particular course to be very clear in mind that actual yoga is the teachings of Patanjali that is in this small book with 195 lines, which will just come in 2 or 3 pages if you wrote them back to back, is it not? But this has been sidelined, and those who are teaching Hatha Yoga are calling themselves as teacher of yoga, which cannot be accepted in any way. So, henceforth, after this, what we used to call as Patanjali meditation, we will henceforth call it as Patanjali Yoga meditation. There is no reason why we should concede this beautiful term of yoga to those who call it Hatha Yoga. But then the question arises why there is so much of a misunderstanding? Why the teachers of Hatha Yoga don't say that they are teaching Hatha Yoga and they just say that we are teaching yoga? Why this sort of a gross, a huge proportion of misunderstanding? So there is a reason for that because there are two terms here that are coming in Hatha Yoga, namely, excuse me, namely asana and pranayama. And asana and pranayama are two terms present in Ashtanga Yoga also. In his original yoga, he has prescribed only abhyas and vairagya. Whereas, and also there is discussion about Ishwar Pranidhan, that is discretionary here. In Kriya-Yoga, that is kind of appendix to yoga, he is saying tapaswadhyaya and Ishwar Pranidhan. There are three elements. Here there are 2+1, so to say, because the one is discretionary. Two are mandatory, abhyas and vairagya. Here there are three mandatory, tapaswadhyaya and Ishwar Pranidhan. Whereas in Ashtanga Yoga there are 8 limbs. That is the meaning of Ashta. Ashta is octa, 8. So Ashtanga Yoga has 8 limbs. Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyaha, Dharana, and Dhyāna and Samadhi. So we have said Yam and Niyam are related to lifestyle. And then we are, because this is a practice-based course, we have been more looking at asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Where asana, pranayam, pratyahar were outer yoga, because they are related not that much to the mind, whereas dharana, dhyana, and samadhi is related to our mind domain, and that's why that is inner yoga. Because Patanjali Yoga is basically trying to subdue all that is happening in my mind. In particular, that faculty of mind is called chitta, which is here, chitta. That is innermost part of my mind. So what I was saying was, within Ashtanga Yoga, there are two limbs of asana and pranayam, and Hatha-Yoga also has asana and pranayam. So that two terms Hatha-Yoga has borrowed from Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. But even this borrowing is illegitimate because of a simple reason that Patanjali defines asana as sthir sukham asanam. What that means is a body posture that is unwavering and is comfortable. But in Hatha Yoga, there are tens of one, almost 100 plus body postures, and all postures have an ending with asana. For example, Bhujangasana, Sarvangasana, Matsyendrasana. The ending is with asana. But this asana that they have borrowed from Ashtanga Yoga is invalid, because asana term in Ashtanga Yoga is comfortable posture, which is conducive to meditation. Whereas, say you are in Sarvangasana or in Bhujangasana or Halasana or whatever those Hatha Yoga postures are, they are not conducive to meditation, and they are not very comfortable for that purpose. So even their way of borrowing this asana term causes confusion and is also not valid. So, but that is the history. That's where we stand in this time domain in the present times. So now there are, of course, a number of Hatha Yoga teachers, very prominent ones. I don't want to name them. Because of this confusion, they thought they are teaching yoga, and they have even written commentaries on Patanjali Yoga, which of course is very faulty, because that was not their expertise. But that's what is happening in the world. We don't want to criticize too many things, but we just want to be aware that as we are learning Patanjali Yoga meditation, we are, of course, trying to be most authentic, but in the world, all sorts of things are going on. In Hatha Yoga, people have their own brands like Bikram Yoga, Power Yoga, even Laughter Yoga. Everything has become, possible. And Hatha Yoga teachers have even borrowed not only the term yoga, some Hatha Yoga teachers have called his brand as Kriya-Yoga. Some Hatha Yoga teacher is even calling his brand as Ashtanga Yoga. Naturally, this is a illegitimate thing to borrow Patanjali's term in the direction of Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga has nothing to do with Patanjali Yoga. So, a teacher is either teaching Hatha Yoga or he is teaching Patanjali Yoga. Of course, there are very, very few teachers of Patanjali Yoga. So that's the way things stand. But nowadays, because yoga term, this term has been hijacked by Hatha Yoga. Those who teach meditation, they say, I am teaching meditation. They are not able to say, I am teaching Patanjali Yoga. But henceforth, we will call our course as Patanjali Yoga Meditation. We don't want to concede this beautiful term, because we have full right, because we are teaching, we are learning Patanjali's teachings that are covered in his original treatise of Yoga Sutra. Now let's look at what is going on in the world today in the name of meditation. So today meditation has somehow become constrained to mindfulness. So this is a beautiful term, but this takes you up to what is called Dhyan. That is, we have translated in this course as meditation. But in our course, we attempt to go, and we do intend to go even beyond Dhyan, what is called Samadhi, that we have translated as immersion. So, you will very well see that Patanjali teaches us to go beyond Dhyan, beyond mindfulness, all the way to what we call samadhi, immersion. And just with respect to mindfulness, it's not a very good term, but just to bring it to somebody's understanding, it is kind of mindlessness. Because in this last step of Patanjali Yoga, you are disconnect from your mind, is it not? So mindfulness is good, but in our way of looking at it, it is one step short of the final step of immersion, and we do aspire to reach that spot also. So, as you can see here, the mindfulness has a lot of benefits, but all those benefits, as we'll discuss, are going to accrue from Patanjali Yoga meditation. But Patanjali Yoga meditation has, I will say, another one-third range of benefits that are beyond mindfulness. So that's why we say this is a very comprehensive package, and this is coming from Kapil and Patanjali. They are authors of Sankhya and Patanjali Yoga philosophy, respectively. And also, as I said, I have borrowed some remarks from Maharshi Dayananda, because in particular, in Ashtanga Yoga Dhyan, Patanjali, which is for below average people, Patanjali allows us to superimpose with anything that is in your memory. But this is where he made a brilliant contribution in his book called Rigvedadi Bhumika. He says that you do the mental recitation of the sound that is called pranav. Patanjali himself calls this sound as pranav, and this is oh. So that's what I thought I should discuss with you today about what we have learned or we can expect to learn from teachings of Sankhya and Yoga authored by Kapil and Patanjali, and how do they compare with what is going around in the world that we live in. So, correct nomenclature is important, but it should not misdirect us. We want to be modest and we want to be very faithful to this authentic understanding of Patanjali Yoga meditation. Let's now do as is our practice. I will say I'll set it my timer for about say 12 minutes, and we get into a practice mode of Patanjali Yoga meditation. Very first is we want to discipline our body. So, meditation is nothing but like when I was speaking and you were attentively listening to me, we were alert from both body and mind. When we say we are alert, our own consciousness that is deep inside in my cave, which is kind of a light of consciousness, that is emitting light and was allowed to permeate through the whole of the system, is it not? Because I was using my speech organ and my mind, etc. And you are using your ears and your mind to decipher what I was speaking. Now, as we wish to go into meditation, we wish to withdraw our consciousness from outermost realm, outermost domain. Want to withdraw inward so that I want it to be confined to that tiny cave home. You know? So that is what is my attempt. So I start my journey from my body. Last week we noticed that between body and mind there is a pranic domain, in particular the breathing, what is called our non-voluntary forces that always function in the background. So first we withdraw our consciousness from body, then from the breathing domain, and then from the mind domain, and so on. So as far as practice is concerned, we discipline our body before I withdraw my consciousness from body so that I can become carefree from. Having done that, we discipline our breathing, that we devote 2 minutes or so in deep abdominal breathing, and here it begins. Deep breathe out through the nostril, we throw out the air and our abdomen shrinking inward. Now deep breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Today is a slightly unfortunate setting here. Our landscape person is doing the mowing work, so there is a lot of noise here. But let's proceed further. The next is Pratyahar. We will recite that sound orally for a minute or so. And also I should not forget, after this deep breathing, we take a pause. That's what essentially we are doing now. Then step number 3 is oral recitation of that sound. And after that, as we go into inner yoga, we observe our mind as if it is hooked somewhere on our forehead in between our two eyebrows, as if my mental focus will remain at this physical location for the later part of exercise. And then I move on from oral recitation to mental recitation of that sound. Of course, some thoughts will come, but if I am steadfast, I know what my objective is, then thoughts will diminish. Then I will graduate from concentration to meditation, and when even that disappears from my mind, that mental recitation of the sound, then I am in that infinite ocean. So here begins oral recitation of the sound for a minute. Om. 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 Om.